Well, ladies and gentlemen, week 0 is done. We only had 4 games, but obviously a pretty big upset with Georgia Tech. I think they closed 10.5 point underdogs. They end up beating FSU. Very tough loss for FSU. They come out of the gate up 8-0 in that game with like 11 minutes left in the first quarter, averaging 10 yards per play on their first, like 7 plays, scoring a touchdown right away. But Georgia Tech and Haynes King, could Georgia Tech possibly be ranked? It'll be interesting. I will be going over FSU. Certainly, they still have a shot at the playoff. There's no doubt about it, considering now it is the 12-team playoff. If this was last year, I think FSU would basically be completely done at this point, losing to Georgia Tech in week 1 on a neutral field. But they do still have a shot. Obviously, that's a really bad loss to start the season, though, 24-21. Georgia Tech, we'll see how they end up this year, but maybe an 8-win team, especially after that big win. I'm not going to say it's totally fluky, but you're talking about a neutral site game, week 0, first game of the year. We'll see with Georgia Tech. I don't know. I know people might start to rate them a little bit. They did return a lot from last year. They did return a lot, and that's a huge win for them. But I will be talking about Florida State and how far they moved down in terms of the FPI and everything like that, and also looking at their schedule. But I do want to go through these 4 games. Normally, how I do these recaps is I'll just go through all the top 25 games, and then I'll look at the FPI and see how it updates. Because this is week 0, it's going to be a little bit different, a little bit more focused on that first game, because all these other games, they are what they are. Obviously, the New Mexico Montana State game, Montana State, the FCS team, sitting around 11-point favorites. I think they closed at, and they were going to lose 21 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. They end up winning 35-31. That's a demoralizing loss for New Mexico. Not that it matters a ton, although I will say not a great showing for the FCS, because Montana State is supposed to be one of the best teams. Again, they were 11-point favorites. They were getting crushed by New Mexico. Yes, they came back and won, but still, they only win by 4, and it takes a 21-point effort in the fourth quarter to win. Certainly, if you're Montana State, you'll take it, but just not an amazing effort there. You want to talk about a tough game? How about SMU? Preston Stone starts off that game 1 of 5 with an interception. They end up barely beating Nevada. They come back in the fourth quarter. They were sitting like 27-point favorites over the Wolfpack. Maybe Nevada is a little bit better this year, but SMU was a team that, based on their schedule, people thought they could potentially make some noise in the ACC and maybe have an outside chance at making the playoff. That is not a good week 0 game for the Mustangs, but I guess we'll see. They end up getting the win. Again, maybe Nevada's better than we thought. It's week 0. You don't want to read too much into it, but you do want to kind of understand that that's not a good performance against a Nevada team that normally is one of the worst teams in FBS. And then you do have Hawaii beating Delaware State. I believe Hawaii closed -39 or -38. Delaware State's one of the worst FCS teams. They've won like 1 game over the past 2 years. So I didn't even know that. I mean, I knew Delaware State was bad, but Hawaii ends up not covering 35-14. Not an amazing showing from Hawaii. You would have liked like a 49-0 type win, try and cover the spread there, but you can't read a ton into it. Hawaii should be better this year. They've been one of the worst FBS teams, the last 4 or 5 years. So maybe Hawaii's better this year, but that was not a great showing in terms of that. I will also preview maybe the Thursday games, just because obviously I'm going to be coming up with my predictions on all the ranked matchups tomorrow. That's going to be maybe like 20 games or something. There's going to be a ton of games. A lot of them are going to be blowouts, obviously, because it's week 1 and you're facing like bad, teams like Western Carolina. But you've got Rutgers playing. So the next games will be on Thursday. And there's going to be Thursday games, Friday games, Saturday games, 1 Sunday game, 1 Monday game. They can do that in week 1 because the NFL hasn't started yet. So they can have Sunday games and Monday games. But obviously Rutgers, I'll tell you what, Rutgers has a very easy schedule. I wouldn't be surprised if Rutgers won 8 or 9 games. I mean, 9 games is pushing it, but they have an easy schedule. They've got an improved team. They're on the come up right now. I'd like to see Rutgers win 9 games. Western Carolina is going to get crushed by NC State. NC State, kind of an under the radar team right now. North Carolina A&T, an FCS team, taking on Wake Forest. So Wake Forest, not a great team. They haven't been good recently, but they'll win that game. UCF taking on an FCS team, New Hampshire. Should be an easy win for them. We've also got some weather to look at. I do like looking at the weather. 94 degrees, UL Monroe, Jackson State. Any other big games? Bowling Green is playing. Arkansas takes on Arkansas Pine Bluff. That should be a win. These are some hot. Yeah, it's going to be very hot next week. That's the other thing. You have Kansas, a team that I like taking on Lindenwood. That will be at an MLS soccer stadium you can see in Kansas City. Missouri coming in at number 11 to start the year. They're taking on Murray State. And you do also have, here's some lines, Minnesota. This is a big game in the Big Ten and the ACC. Minnesota -1.5 against North Carolina. That game's on Fox. So that'll be a huge game for both of those teams. Basically a pick 'em right now. Colorado and North Dakota State. That's the huge game that everyone's talking about because Colorado's got all this hype. North Dakota State, we know they've been one of the best FCS teams in recent memory. Colorado State sitting -9 and excuse me, not -9.5 in that one. Utah and Southern Utah playing as well, 89 degrees. Ouch. Look at True TV with the game. Hilarious. Illinois taking on Eastern Illinois, 9 o'clock on the Big Ten Network there. But I do want to take a look at the updated FPI. Take a look and see how far FSU fell. So FSU falls 5 spots. They're still ranked number 16. Certainly FSU, I mean, we got a 12-team playoff. They are not out of it. That's a bad loss, though, in the ACC. They're 0-1 now in that conference, so it's not like a non-conference loss that's going to sting a little bit more because it does affect the conference standings, but they're still ranked number 16. DJ Uiagalelei did not look good, especially for an experienced QB, but there is a lot of flukiness, again, to these week 0 games. It's important to understand that. SMU falls 5 spots for their bad showing. They're at number 30 now. That doesn't really surprise me. You do have Georgia Tech up significantly. They are up 17 spots. They're at number 37 right now. So Georgia Tech moves up. And then you did have some other teams. Nevada moving up 13 spots because they way overperformed against SMU relative to what we thought they were going to do. You do also have New Mexico down 6 spots for, I guess, losing to Montana State, even though technically they performed better than Vegas thought. And Hawaii down 15 spots. That's just based off of how bad Delaware State is. Hawaii is, wow. Hawaii got crushed, even though they won 35-14, just because they underperformed relative to the ESPN FPI. And I also did want to take a look at FSU's schedule just to see how many losses can they have. It's a really bad start to the season for them. But let's just see how easy their schedule is. Boston College at home. This is the Monday game, by the way. The Monday game. So they were around 21-point favorites. I'm guessing that's going to go down a little bit. Memphis is not a bad team. They're going to beat Boston College, you would expect, in a rebound. Memphis is not bad. They get California at home. California is also not bad either. At SMU, that's not going to be necessarily easy. Versus Clemson, that's not going to be easy. I don't think there's any way FSU makes the playoff. This is not, for the ACC, even their non-conference game versus Memphis, at SMU, versus Clemson, at Miami, at Notre Dame, there's no way. I think they're probably going to lose 4 games if I had to guess. Maybe 3 if they're lucky. Clemson could be a toss-up. SMU, they should beat SMU because SMU had a bad week 1 showing, but you've also got at Miami and at Notre Dame. Florida they should beat, but that's the rivalry game. I think FSU's in some pretty big trouble entering week 1. I mean, they needed to win that game against Georgia Tech. Just looking at their schedule, you would think. Technically, they could lose another game. I mean, if they win the ACC, if they beat all the ACC teams, they're going to make it. That's just how it is right now with the 12-team playoff and the auto bids. But if they lose 3 games in the ACC and they don't make their conference championship, or they don't make they don't win their conference championship, they're not going to make it. There's no way. A 3-loss ACC team's not getting in. It's just impossible. So if they lose to Miami, there's just no other margin for error for them. Beating Memphis may be good for them because that could be a big non-conference win, especially if Memphis wins out after that. And Memphis could. A lot of people are predicting Memphis to make the playoff as the group of 5 team, but we will have to see in terms of that. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.